Hey everybody, this is Holly, and you're watching Real Time Psychic. I'm a psychic and intuitive medium who focuses on generational trauma, ancestral healing through divination. I'm also an author, and I'm also always focusing on trauma. So I'm doing this video because I was led to do this video by Spirit, and sometimes it doesn't involve me getting dressed up and everything else. Um, and plus, it's really hot where I am, so I apologize if you see me in a tank top. And where I am is like 10:57 at night. But I just wanted to do this video, or I was led to do this video by Spirit, because the lunar eclipse is tonight, and it focuses on Capricorn energy. And what I'm getting from this is that we are to be honest with you, like when it comes to Capricorn, for folks who don't know, we're workaholics. I mean, Capricorn is rising, and we're always focused on work, focusing on grinding, focusing on what can we do to make ourselves better, for the workforce, whether it be our business, our own business, or for someone else. It's always about focusing on the next project, the next big thing for us. We're always focusing on work because we want to do our best. It's almost to the point of us being workaholics. Also, a lot of us are with the retrogrades, happening, especially Mercury retrograde and Pluto. There's a lot of things that are happening as far as our emotional state, and on top of that, it is a Cancer season still. So like literally focused on our emotions, our emotional state. A lot of things are coming up. Anything that pertains to our past or anything, any sort of trauma that um, that remains unresolved. And I know for me, I have been feeling it. And granted, like we have the power to change our we have the power to change ourselves, but as far as the emotional state, like the energy is still there. So don't be surprised if you are feeling depressed, or you're feeling like anxious, or very discombobulated and discontent when it comes to your emotions. A lot of people from the past is coming out, and you're seeing them, and you're going to feel a lot of emotion from that. Is because we are being told to look at ourselves, and to look at ourselves, in regards to those people, and to basically examine our triggers. And so that's what's happening. I'm also getting that, to mention that, going back to the Capricorn, um, that energy, a lot of us are so focused on work and so focused on the next big thing, and focused, about what we're supposed to be doing, what our purpose is, and how everything. We're overthinking. We're overthinking, and to be honest with you, Capricorns are known for their overthinking. And so what's happening is that a lot of us are falling into a depressive state as a result of that overthinking. So I'm just getting a lot of downloads as far as Capricorn, and how we view our work, and also being that this is also time for us to start looking at our past and start letting go of a lot of what's going on, especially when it comes to our childhood. And so what's happening is that I'm tapped in already, and I did ask Spirit, what story do they have for folks, um, in regards to Capricorn and the lunar eclipse, because the people, are familiar with the moon, and that moon energy, it actually helps let go of a lot of stuff, especially anything that's stored in the subconscious mind, or the unconscious mind, whether it be our thoughts and our ideologies about ourselves and in our environment and other people. So what I got from this card right here, and I got a lot of them, is the child card upside down. I got the child card upside down. And so what's going on is that a lot of us are not looking into our childhood stuff, And a lot of that stuff is coming up. A lot of us have been, and this is pertaining to trauma. So a lot of us have been molested. A lot of us have gone through some sort of trauma in our childhood to where we are to where our I'm getting that we're stunted. Our developmental growth is very much stunted. A lot of those things that any normal child will go through, we have not been able to go through that. A lot of us have not. Those who have gone through trauma have not had any sort of healthy, well-adjusted childhood, and it shows. And so, what's happening is that we are growing up uh, as adults who are just going through a lot. We are going through depression, anxiety, PTSD uh, because it's so much that we have gone through that we have not been able to process. Our brains have not been able to make sense of what happened to us, and so a lot of us are still stuck, still paralyzed. Um, and depending on when uh, the abuse happened, what I'm getting to is that that's where we still are developmentally. Like for instance, like I was molested when I was 5 years old, and until I started going through the growth process and going through therapy and talking to my or meeting my mentor, I was 5 years old. Okay, my growth stopped the moment I went through um, my trauma, as a child. So a lot of us are walking around acting like children in adult bodies. We don't even know what it's like. What I'm getting is that we don't even know what it's like um, to be children or to have fun any longer. Even though we are uh, a child stuck in an adult's body, a lot of us have not had those opportunities to have a childhood that involves us playing. A lot of us were um, placed in a position to be little adults, or a lot of us were in such a fight or flight mode or freeze mode, um, that we were always hyper vigilant and on alert. We were not able to relax and enjoy our childhood the way a well adjusted person has been able to. So as a result of that, a lot of us are walking around, with a certain type of mindset, certain types of behaviors that are being displayed, and all that stuff is coming up as a result, because it's getting on people's nerves. To be honest with you, a lot of us, we are adults and we have people in our lives. A lot of us are possibly married or involved with someone. A lot of us may have children of our own, and a lot of are a lot of that stuff because it has been unresolved. A lot of us are walking around with. I'm getting that a lot of us are walking around not being able to adult, not being able to act as adults. Not everybody is able to take responsibility for their stuff. So as a result of that, like you felt, it feels as if someone else is either dealing with a big ass child. And so what's happening is that spirit is basically giving. This is why all this stuff is happening as far as the lunar eclipse and everything in Capricorn are coming up because we are being called. Those who have been through trauma is like childhood abuse, whether it be physical, sexual, emotional, excuse me, emotional. It's literally time to start getting the work done and start getting help and start telling our stories. I'm getting that a lot of us have not even spoken about our stories yet. A lot of us are still walking around with all that pain in their heart and in their spirit and being bogged down by it. And as a result of that, we're just sitting here just being unhappy and we're sitting here basically blocking our blessings with our behavior and our mindset. So this is really the time to get the help because we're worth it. We're definitely worth it, and it's time for us to see ourselves as worth it, and not play that tape, in our minds that basically say that we are nothing, we are worthless. Because once we start, we've been hearing that same old thing since we were kids. A lot of us have been seeing that and hearing that since we were children, that we were nothing, we were worthless, that nobody loved us. And it's time to really start the work to let that go. It's time to let that go. For real, like there's no need for us to play that tape anymore. There's no need to live that life anymore. There's no need for it. And so what I'm getting, from that one card is that yes, we have gone through what we've gone through. And developmentally we may be somewhere else. But now there is no excuse now. Okay. A lot of y'all have suppressed a lot of what happened to you too. There's a suppression, okay, a repression. Okay, y'all block that out. And now because of this retrograde that's happening, the Mercury retrograde that's happening, a lot of those memories are now coming up and it's hurting. You're confused. You don't know what's going on. I'm just getting a lot of stuff is swelling up. A lot is going on. A lot's coming up. These are not false memories. Any memory that's coming up that involves you being hurt in any way, shape, or form, that's what really happened. And so now is the time to face what happened to you, to let those memories come up, okay? Especially if you're in a safe place to have that happen. A lot of y'all are reenacting your abuse right now. You're reenacting what happened to you. Okay, before it was your parent or your guardian or someone you knew, but now it's someone like a significant other, a boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, and you have, and I'm just seeing like a whole now, like a whole guerrilla gang of people who come into your life that may have reenacted or played the part of your abuser in some way, shape, or form because on the subconscious level you have not changed that frequency yet. That's what I'm getting that before. I'm getting that with that one card alone. I'm also getting the downloads from spirit that a lot of us are walking around with that same frequency that those same messages. I know that a lot of folks they hear like attracts like, and that needs to be explained. And so what that means that, or you are what you attract. I don't necessarily agree with that or believe that. I do believe though that people attract what they have not healed from. People attract what they do not or have not healed from. Okay, so if you have not healed from your childhood abuse, you're only going to reenact that abuse. And even if you are with a partner who treats you with respect, there's still that part of you that whoever you're with, that's still that part of you that feels that you don't deserve that person for whatever reason. So self sabotage is very real. Self sabotage is very real. Okay, it's very real. You also got the heaven. I got a lot of upside down cards too. And so we got pulled up here. So the heaven and earth card that we have up here. Let's see if I can. So the heaven and earth card I have up here. A lot of you are not at peace right now. A lot of you are not at peace right now because you have not faced what happened to you, and there is no fault of your own. There's no fault of your own. No fault of your own whatsoever. What I'm getting from this is that a lot of y'all, again, y'all are repress a lot of things about your abuse. Also, you're in survival mode. That's usually the case um, with people who have gone through some sort of abuse, whether it be sexual, emotional, physical, or whatnot. Y'all have gone through. I'm feeling like there's no. You're in survival mode right now because that's how you were taught to operate. So there's no peace. You're like basically going on autopilot. A lot of y'all are going on autopilot. I'm also getting that growth needs to happen, which is why there's so much greenery in this card too. A lot of growth that needs to occur. Um, because yeah, I'm just getting that like growth needs to happen. This is no like you being on autopilot is no longer acceptable because there's no real peace in being on autopilot. There's no peace in being. There's no peace that comes with that, and you're basically putting yourself in a position to lie to yourself and say that you're okay, when in actuality you are not. See, I'm getting like a lot of feminine energy as well. So what I'm getting is that it's usually I'm getting women, and female body individuals who are in this category. A lot of female individuals, or a lot of women and female body individuals are in this category because the majority is basically is y'all who are and me included because I consider myself somewhat of a female body individual. Um, but a lot of us have gone through this where women are the more women and female body individuals are more likely to be sexually abused by someone they know, whether it be a father or someone in the family friend, someone in the community. Whether you told someone or not, you're like that shame is carried into it because you're wondering like why did this happen? What did I do to deserve this? What did I do to provoke it? I'm also getting that a lot of women and female body individuals um, that they feel like there's this emptiness that y'all have. Those like emptiness in regards to what happened. There's an emptiness. That's what I'm getting to from this card, the father card. You feel like you were groomed for one. A lot of y'all were groomed, and a lot of you feel like you could not tell anybody. Okay, a lot of y'all did not have a father figure at home either. A lot of y'all did not have a lot of people who had gone through trauma. I'm getting that there was no father figure in the home, or someone, or a protector in the home. There was nobody. You felt like there was nobody to protect you from to prevent this from happening. Whatever abuse or like anything y'all had going on. In some cases, it was a father who abused you. It was a father or a male individual who abused you in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so this is a story that I am getting from um, a, in regards to retrograde and Mercury retrograde and lunar eclipse that's here. Um, yeah, and I just feel that a lot of people have like, oh wow. So this is what I got too. I got the mother card here. So I'm just getting that like Guardians dropped the ball. Guardians dropped the ball here when it came to your trauma, regardless of what type of trauma it was. Okay, I feel like there were a lot of I'm getting like and all when I see women and female body individuals, I do see women, but I also feel like this is geared towards black women in particular. Okay, that's what I'm getting. Like black women in particular, did not get support from fathers. Okay, but I'm also getting too like mothers were absent as well. You're more likely told by your mother that there was like some sort of jealousy that you were somehow at fault. Like there's somehow these two people were not your support system at all. I'm getting that there was like a lot of not absenteeism, whether it be emotionally or physically. I just feel like a lot of the mothers have gone through their own trauma. I'm getting that a lot of mothers in our lives have gone through their own trauma pertaining to sexual abuse or their bodies, and so they don't know how. They don't know how. They do not know how. There's no excuse, but they definitely didn't know how. And in some cases, um, they didn't support you. They blamed you for what happened, and they were also and I know that in my case, um, the majority of the people who abused me, excuse me, were women. But what I'm getting from this card here is that a lot of the mothers were absent because simply they didn't know any better. They went through their own trauma. They came from a whole generation of keep your mouth shut, or you did something, you were fast, you did something to provoke this. So I'm getting that despite the pain and suffering that those accusations caused, and that lack of support caused, to not be too harsh on your mother. Not be too harsh on your mother because she also went through her own trauma. In the way she was told to handle it, she's doing the same to you. And like I said, there's no excuse, but this is what's happening. Okay, this is what's happening, and as a result of that, um, you have the integrity card. A lot of you are repeating. Okay, what I'm getting intuitively is that a lot of you are repeating the cycle of abuse. A lot of you are repeating the cycle of abuse by being abusive yourself. A lot of you are being abusive out of you feel out of necessity. I'm just seeing that a lot of y'all are. I'm like in my mind. I'm getting towards your children. Like there's a corporal punishment or some sort of punishment, and it's not the fault of your kids or what happened to you. Corporal punishment would be the death of the black community. I feel like it did not come from us. It did not start from us anyway. But we're literally perpetuating violence by hitting our children with belts and hitting our children with blunt objects, or just hitting our children in general because we are hurting. And so I'm being told by spirit that we need to find another way to communicate with our babies. We need to find another way to communicate with our children to hold ourselves accountable for hurting our children the way we were hurt as children. Now, it's 2019. There is no excuse to put a belt to your child. I know that there's a lot of people who say, I turned out fine, but in actuality, you didn't. In some way, shape, or you're still maladjusted. You're still lacking communication. You're still not communicating with anybody who has hurt you. You're still not communicating with your child to determine why, you know, they acted the way they did. There's no respect or reciprocity of respect. Your children are literally afraid of you. So now it's just now you're being told to re-examine and look at your own stuff. If you're thinking about having children, wait until you are mentally and emotionally mature enough to have children. Just because you are an adult does not mean you are mentally and emotionally ready for that sort of responsibility. Children have minds of their own. They're going to have behaviors of their own. They're going to do things that are going to piss you off. Be honest with yourself about your temperament and what you are willing to put up with. Be honest with yourself so this won't repeat. Be honest with yourself. So this right here, so you won't have a whole nother generation of people in a whole nother generation of people in your family messed up and traumatized because y'all didn't break the chain of violence. Don't do this, and don't do this to yourself. Don't do this to yourself. This is what happened. This is what happened to a lot of you. You were abused and traumatized to the point of being maladjusted. Y'all don't know how to communicate without snapping or being passive aggressive. And that's if y'all even communicate at all. This is you right here, the one who's gone through all this trauma and drama because you had adults in your life who did not look out for you the way they could have because of some old generational stuff that they refused to look at for whatever reason, or felt as if they could not look at for whatever reason. Because I'm going to be real honest with you, a lot of folks are scared to look at their own shadows. A lot of people are afraid to look at their own shadow work. A lot of people are really afraid of taking it there because they don't want to be re-traumatized, knowing full well, knowing full well that they're hurting. They're hurting. This is very like this is very very. I'm just getting in communities in general. I'm just getting black communities, black community, black folks are doing this. It's time. It's time to stop. It's time to stop. We have been through it enough. I'm getting for as far as resources. There's this book. It's called "No Secrets, No Lies." And it's about um, how sexual abuse was actually covered up in the black community. How a lot of black families are suffering from sexual abuse. Um, I'm getting a lot of the way boys are silenced, their sexual orientation in question because of what happened to them, especially if they are molested by a man or a male-bodied individual. I'm getting that there are grown men who feel like they have come up and matured sexually because their babysitter had sex with them when they were 6. The babysitter was damn near 15, 16, and they think that shit's normal. That's their way of making sense of what happened to them. On top of that, we live in a society where sexual prowess among boys and young men is considered a rite of passage. No, we're not doing this. We're not doing this anymore. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. This is we're not doing this. Y'all having kids out here. Y'all having kids, and y'all don't know how. And yeah, so how do y'all do the work necessary to not repeat the cycle of violence? But there are so many others who don't even know where to begin as far as the work, and they end up being fucking maladjusted, and there's no peace. There's no peace. It's y'all. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. It's time to tell our stories. That's where the integrity card is coming through. That's why we got this card. It's time for us to tell our stories. It's time for us to start living in our truth and start being free so we can break the cycle of violence that comes with being abused. It's time to let that go, which is why the lunar eclipse, we have a lot, I mean, there's a lot of full moons that come up. I think around 13 full moons I read that throughout the year. There are like 13 full moons throughout the year, or if not 12. 2019 is the time. It's literally the time for us to get our lives together. This literally is the year of completion. This is literally the year of letting go of all things that don't work in our favor. People, places, situations, ideologies, political affiliations. We're being asked to let go of anything that holds us back. Especially when it comes to trauma. We're supposed to let that stuff go. If you don't have people in your camp that are going to support you in your growth when it comes to this, that are not going to be part of your story of redemption and reemergence, then what's the point of them being here? That's what I was doing right here. Like, this is the time for y'all to be honest with yourself about your abuse and how severe it was. Which is why you're being told to really examine any sort of memory that starts to come up during this time. These retrogrades are not playing. Mercury retrograde is not playing. Pluto retrograde is not playing. Pluto is not playing. Pluto is one of those, especially if you are one of those folks who self-medicate to drown out the memories of what happened. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people who have gone through some sort of trauma, who struggle with PTSD, depression, anxiety, that's why a lot of them smoke weed. That's why a lot of them drink or develop some sort of addictive attribute or or addictive behavior to self-medicate and to get rid of all those memories of abuse. Pluto is basically that's why Pluto the retrograde is so important because that deals with that planet, that energy deals with addiction. A lot of y'all are really dealing with that. A lot of y'all are dealing with addiction. A lot of you are dealing with self-medicating. I'm going to be real honest with you. Dick can only go so far. It can't cure nothing. I'm being real. Like, dick cannot do anything for you. Punani can't do very much for you. You can only have that for so long before you have to look at yourself in the mirror and look at your stuff for what it is. And I'm telling you from personal experience. You can only run away or use other people and use other vices to run away for so long before you hit a brick wall. I'm being fucking honest with you. That's why you're being told by spirit to face your stuff. Face your stuff. Face your shit. Because a lot of y'all are walking around like insane in the membrane. Like for real, like a lot of y'all are so ready to run from your own shadows. That's why for a lot of us, these retrogrades are so intense. Granted, you don't have to give them as much power as far as uh, your behavior and how you feel about yourself, but the energy is real. And this is the opportunity. This is definitely the opportunity for you to look at your stuff because too many people with with um, with all this raw emotion that stems from some shit you have not looked at. That's why a lot of you are like shaking and ready to go off on somebody or um, feeling depressed and angry and unappreciated. These retrogrades are asking us to look at ourselves, especially if you've gone through some sort of trauma. This is our opportunity. People who have gone through trauma, this is definitely our opportunity. Definitely our opportunity to examine all that's come up. Those feelings of inadequacy, those feelings of the overthinking, the feelings of depression. People who are like have Capricorn somewhere in their chart. This is definitely for us. We have the tendency to overthink stuff, and to be honest with you, looking at I have something for you. Overworking. Why do you do that? A lot of Capricorns do that. A lot of Capricorns tend to focus on work, especially um, when it's not even necessary. But you're like a lot of us work to the point of being borderline workaholics. Why is that? Why does anyone do that? Being a workaholic is no different from being a sex addict or an alcoholic. You're still focusing on something to the nth degree. The only difference is that instead of feeling good, I guess depending on what you do, you feel good. But the difference between being a workaholic and anything else is pretty much nothing. So why do you do it? I'm gonna leave that question with y'all. Why do people do things to excess? Why do you work to excess? Why do you put everything your work above everything else? Why are you so anxious when you're not busy? That is really something to examine, especially if with the Capricorn energy going on. Why are you so laser focused or obsessing over work or obsessing over getting stuff done and getting it done correctly or in a timely fashion? And when you're not working and you're sitting in your own thoughts, you get squirrely. Why is that? What do you get out of that? What is the payoff? It is definitely something to examine and to look at. Depending on the person, the answer will be different. I don't know, maybe the degree or the workaholism or the obsession with work will be different or at a various degree or a varying degree. But why even take it there to begin with? This is a question that you are to ask yourself. Because is it keeping you from your integrity? Is it keeping you from looking at your stuff? Is it keeping you from, you know, looking at your shadows and looking at your own toxic behavior? Let's have that. Let's have that conversation. Let's have that conversation. Just because you are a victim of abuse does not mean that you're like sooner or later um, you're going to be absolved of your own toxicity. Abusive people do use their abuse history as an excuse to be a shitty human being. There are a lot of people who have struggled with abuse who are toxic or have used some sort of toxic behavior to dehumanize, humiliate, and victimize other people because it gives them a sense of power that they didn't have when they were abused, or they didn't know any better, or they don't know any better. But most of the time, it's because that sense of power that they feel, that sense of power that comes from abusing someone else. They didn't have that when it was going on with them, when it was happening with them. There's a if you like people who have gone through, abuse. Ask yourself, what toxic behavior have you, distributed that affected you or a relationship or a friendship or the environment you lived in. I know that I was guilty of that type of shit. This is a time to be honest with ourselves, people. Those who have been through trauma, the stuff is coming up for a reason. The stuff is coming up for a reason. It's like the tar. But I'm getting that for some people it's like a tar, all that, and it's like a really murky energy because you held on to it for so long or you used it to abuse someone else. Regardless of what it is, it's time to be real. It's time to be real, and it's definitely time to be honest with yourself about your behavior and how your abuse has affected you in a way that your life is greatly affected. Your life is upside down. Your life is not where you would like it to be. It's time to have those conversations with yourself. It's it's time to talk about how your abuse has left you maladjusted, how it stunted your emotional, mental, psychological, and even sexual growth, how it affects your financial growth, your spiritual growth. You can only be told you're nothing for so long before you start to believe it, and it fucks up your money because you feel like you can't do a good job, or you feel like you can't do anything that is profitable. You can only be called your name by people that you care about, people who are supposed to be looking out for you for so long, before you start to believe on a subconscious level what they're saying about you is eating you up spiritually. This is extremely um, this is also very important for those who have been through religious abuse or spiritual abuse. There's such a thing. People who have been forced to go to church, people who have been forced to become um, part of a religion or part of of a cult they were not wanting to be a part of. People who have struggled with their sexuality or their sexual identity or their sexual orientation. They have been told, you know, because of their religion, that they are not valuable, that God does not love them, Spirit does not love them. How in some cases people were severely abused because of their sexual orientation and gender identity, killed because of their gender identity, kicked out of the house because of their gender identity and their sexual orientation. How that caused trauma because your basic resources and your safety was put in jeopardy simply because of who you were, who you like, basically that because you chose to live your truth. Let's talk about the fact how religion has people in the closet to this day, and and that in of itself is a form of abuse and a form of violence. How you now snapping on your kids because now you don't know how, because you were never taught how to effectively communicate with your babies. And now they are afraid of you. They are afraid of you. It don't make no sense. That's why we have to start telling our stories. You are to be honest with yourself before you continuously hurt yourself and somebody else because you decided to not use this opportunity to grow and to prosper. If I seem like I'm preaching, it's because this is very, very important. This is the time for us to stop pretending like we're okay. It's because I love y'all and I see so much potential that we have been told, people who have been abused, we've been told by the very people who abuse us in our homes over the years that we ain't shit. Like, no, we can't listen to those messages anymore. Our lives now depend on us unlearning a lot of what we learned about ourselves from people who are maladjusted themselves and don't have the resources that we do today. There is no excuses at this point. No excuses at this point. Even if you don't go to therapy, at least find a spiritual advisor who can help you, um, who can help you grow spiritually. I understand that a lot of folks, especially Black folks in our community, have yet to, not everyone has access to good health care or access to a good mental health facility, but at least start doing the spiritual work necessary. Okay. And please don't treat that person like, if you do find a spiritual advisor, don't treat them like a therapist. You believe me, we're powerful enough. You can manifest a therapist that can help you. This is a time for us to start talking to our ancestors, talking to our spirit team, and they can help you find professional help. Find someone in your area that can help you. But we're not going to go through this again. We can't go through this another year. We just cannot go through this another year of you stuffing down your trauma and being and being in survival mode. That ain't right. It's not fair for you. It's not fair for the people who choose to be in your life. It's not even fair to the people you're hurting. Because there's a lot of you who are using your abuse and your trauma history to go in on people who have nothing to do with it. So it's time. It's time to it's pretty much time to get that together. It's time to let the stuff go. And this is why, having a ritual, if you're a spiritual person, um, and who has an altar, you know, talking to your ancestors around this time is important. Lighting a white candle and asking, you know, and doing like a cleansing ritual to have that, to give you the strength and the courage to face your story, to face yourself, you know, writing things down, that used to happen to you and writing down affirmations, writing things down on paper, and then all that stuff that you want to let go of on your subconscious mind. Write it down on a piece of paper. If you want to read out loud, you can. If you don't want to read out loud, that's fine too. But burn it. Set it and forget it. In the meantime, continue to do your shadow work, even after um, this eclipse, because now your life is depending on it. Especially if you're talking about raising a family, or you have children of your own. This is your time to be. If you are one of those folks who are using your trauma to hurt other people, this is your time to do the work so you can be redeemable. If you're one of those folks who's in survival mode and you're going on autopilot and all of a sudden you're feeling all this shit that's coming up, face it. It's coming up for a reason. It makes no sense for you. This is spirit's way this is spirit's way of saying, learn your lesson. The spirit's way of saying, like, look, we got you. We got you. But this can't continue. This can't continue. This is definitely the time for you to break the cycle of abuse and have it remain broken. If you cannot show up for yourself, how can you show up for the world? How can you break the cycle when you haven't even begun to look at what that cycle is? You can't break the chain of abuse and violence if you're pretending that it's not there. It's time to stop. So that's all I have. That's all Spirit has. Yeah, Spirit to say, I love y'all. I love y'all, and I will take care of you. and to keep going. Keep going. If you're doing the work already, keep going. Anyway, that's all I have. That's all that spirit has. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And if you are, if this resonated with you in any way, shape, or form, subscribe, follow, share the Bowtie Psychic, whether it be on Facebook or YouTube. Tell your friends about me. Um, I meant to say this too. I don't even know why. I waited until the end. But if you are interested in getting a more in-depth reading, you can contact me at the bowtiepsychic.com. You can go ahead and set up an appointment that way. Um, and yeah, let's do this. Let's do this. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace.